Alright, so we are ready to start getting a handle on this knife. I have my handle traced out on this single block. I wanted to see if it was potentially flat enough to take these handle scales. These are from Bitterroot Handleworks. I'll put a link for these on there in the description. But if these are, yeah, see, I think this might actually just be easier. And see, that's what I don't want. I don't want a bunch of gapping in here. And there's going to be a bunch of gapping if I try to do it this way. So, not going to be able to do it with the handle scales. So we're going to do it with this. So, the way I'm selecting a drill bit is I'm just taking the thickness of the knife handle at its thickest point. And I'm just laying that on there. And hopefully you can see that that's going to be a real good thickness. So then, to figure out how wide I need this, a couple of ways we can do it. But alright. And so to get that in there nice and snug, I know and I need to clear out roughly that distance, and it needs to be about 3/16 wide. So, alright. So what I've done is I've squared this up in my vise. I'm going to take my 3/16 drill bit. Right. Put that right here. And we're going to go ahead. I'm probably going to drill out like probably gonna drill out at least 3. I may need to drill out a couple more. See how that, and then we'll see how this fits. So I might be in the way of the camera here. I'm sorry if it gets hard to see. One thing that's going to be tough is this knife handle is so long that I basically have to use the entire length of the drill bit here. So that's kind of tough. I kind of forgot that this is stabilized. So there's epoxy in here, which is where that smoke is coming from. Okay. So now, this is called a handle broach. I'm just gonna come in here. don't do it that way. It's a really, really great way to break a drill bit. I guarantee you guys don't want to watch the rest of this. Okay. So we got our slot drilled out. We got our blade edge direction marked. We've got our pinhole drilled. Now it's time to lay out our shaping lines for this handle. It's going to be fairly simple handle. We're going to taper it from the start of the blade out. We're going to give it just a little bit of flare. We're going to give it a coffin shape on the end, and then we're going to break the corners over and give it a nice taper so it's, you know, thicker at the back than it is at the front. Alright, this is my least favorite tool in my shop. I really struggle with cutting straight lines. I'm not 100% sure why. But I'm going to do my best, and I'll show you the rough handle shape when I'm done using this thing. Alright, so there's our rough handle shape. Hopefully you can see the taper in there a little bit. We're going to go ahead and finish shaping that on the grinder, but before we do that, we got to get old boy glued up. Fortunately, we have a small blow through here on the back, and we got a small one right here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of this sawdust, because this is all the same color, and I'm just going to mix this into the epoxy as our dye. So we'll need to put some painter's tape over these blowouts here, and then we'll go ahead and get this glued up. Okay, she's all filled up with epoxy. We're going to let this sit for a couple hours, and then we'll come back and kind of do our final handle shaping. Alright, I know this is a bit of a weird angle, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing here. So we're going to taper this out this way and out this way. That's going to be the first thing we do, because I think that's going to make tapering these in a lot easier. We may do some of that on the corner here as well. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and get this started. I'm going to go up to my 160 grit belt. So I've got a very slight taper here. I'm going to start doing more of this on the edge and getting these getting this shaped up. Alright, so we've got the handle pretty much where I want it to be. There's a couple of things we need to do. I had a burn through here in the bottom of the handle. That's why I didn't want to use do a hidden tang on this, because they're just so hard to keep track of where everything is, but that's alright, it is what it is. And then I need to fill in the top here. So we're gonna do this first. I'm actually just gonna do a little tiny bit of epoxy, and then we'll go ahead and get that filled in, and then we'll get that set and hardened, and then we'll fill in the top holes. Alright, I've got my epoxy mixed up. Make sure it's filled in there nice and evenly. Go ahead and let that get set up, and then we'll mix up a different batch. We're actually going to do really dark purple on the top. See how that looks. Alright, so we got our first one set. We'll go ahead and make up our next one. Alright. So it'll be a little bit hard to see it in there. I'll try and maybe you can see what color will be there. Anyway, it's going to be a bright, sparkly, deep purple on top there. So go ahead and let this get dried up, and then we'll get to work on sharpening this knife, the final detail on the handle, and cutting out and fitting up a sheath. Alright, so we've gone ahead, filled in this with the epoxy where it needed it, and I'm just going to start sanding this down to the handle's final finish. I got a little bit of thinning to do from like the pin back, and then just a little bit of smoothing on the bottom here, and I'll kind of run these bevels, if you want to call them that, together a little bit with the sandpaper. But we're just going to start real high. We're going to work one side, and then we're going to probably work the bottom here, and then we'll get it flipped over, and then we'll work the back. Okay, we're on the other side, down to a 220 on this side. I'm not gonna do any more removal on this. It's already at a taper I like. It feels pretty good to me. It's maybe a touch big for my hand, but the guy I'm making this for is a giant, and his hands are way bigger than mine, so I'm not gonna do any more messing around with this. We're just gonna get it cleaned up, and then we'll move on to finishing the handle with super glue. We'll start getting those on there. And before that, we really should trace out a sheath for this thing, but I'm not going to do that down here. Or at least I'm not going to do that over here. I might do that over on my other table. So this is... That's going to be the color of this knife when it's all. A lot of dust back there. Holy moly. Make sure we got that. That's what that handle will look like. That's what the handle will look like when it's all finished up. So I think this one's going to be a beaut. Okay. Handle is all nice and shiny and finished up. There's a couple of areas where this glue is a little bit streaky. There's a little bit more than I need, so I'm going to go ahead and polish that up with just some 2000 grit sandpaper, just to get all the lines kind of moving in the same direction. But then we'll go ahead, we're going to take the grinder back out, we're going to put a fresh 120 grit belt on there, we're going to get the edge started, and then we'll be able to get this sharpened up tonight. And then it'll be on to making a sheath, and this will be ready to leave the shop. Alright, let's go back to the knife. Steady, angle. See how I can lay that in? So we're already starting to cut. We can go through sandpaper. So we're going to go ahead and get the stones out, get this thing all the way polished up. So be ready to go.